What's up, guys? This is Manoj Hoprani. I welcome you all on behalf of the Edipedia world. So, guys, this is the 11th video presentation relating to the topic of equity analysis and valuation. By now, we have already covered our equity analysis part, and we were currently covering the topics relating to equity valuation. So, I'm sure that you guys are enjoying your day to the fullest. I am currently in Bangalore and I'm actually witnessing an awesome weather over here. And Bangalore is a world-class city. So all my viewers who are based out in southern regions of India, cheers to you, thumbs up to you guys. You guys are awesome. To all those guys who are being available in the regions of Tamil Nadu, Chennai. So recently this Vardha cyclone has hit over here. So I just hope that you guys are fine and healthy and stay safe, guys, for that matter. So perfect. By now we have already covered this much of the topics relating to equity analysis and valuation, and I'm sure that you guys are honoring your word time and again by revising your topics in regular and recurring intervals of time. So perfect, guys. With that kind of hope and belief on you, I'll start my video presentation with the topic of relative valuation models. So what does this basically relative valuation models mean? So guys, when we talk about relative valuation models, we always compare price multiples of companies based on different fundamental parameters, just like EPS. Herein we calculate price upon earning or book value or sales, and finally the most popular one amongst all four is enterprise value. Okay, so whenever we talk about relative valuation models, we always compare price multiples of companies based on different fundamental parameters like EPS, that is price upon earning, then comes book value, that is price upon the book value, then comes sales, then it's price upon sales, and then finally it comes as enterprise value, which is enterprise value divided by EBITDA. EBITDA basically means earning before interest, taxation, depreciation and annuity. So amongst many. So price multiples basically, guys, are the ratios of a stock price to some measure of value per share. Basically, price multiples are most frequently applied to valuation using the method of comparables. This method basically involves using a price multiple to evaluate whether an asset relatively undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued in relation to the benchmark value of the multiple. So that's how it works. The benchmark value of the multiple may be the multiple of the similar kind of company or the average value of the multiple for a peer group of companies. Have you ever heard about if a particular stock is moving into aviation, if I'll talk about Indigo, then why it is usually happening that kind of Indigo stock is usually compared with SpiceJet or Jet Airways or any other aviation airline company? Why? Because they belong to a same kind of industry. They belong to similar peer group of companies or industry, maybe that sense. So that is why these are being compared together over here. The economic rationale for this method of comparables is the law of one price. Always remember, guys, in order to compare any kind of multiples, the major motive behind that kind of implementation of the method of comparables is just to go for a law of one price. Okay, you are providing me some tomatoes. I am another kind of vendor who is providing some tomatoes to another person's. Okay, so usually what's going to happen? You are going to compare the price which is being provided to you by one vendor, and you are going to compare the price which is being offered by me to you. So therein you'll be able to get, okay, that same kind of tomato is usually provided by Mr. Manoj at a price of this and this Mr. X at a price of this. So which one to offer? So therein you get a market kind of idea. Okay, my tomato and his tomato is absolutely similar. The only thing is you'll have to understand which one is undervalued, which one is fairly valued, and which one is overvalued. And in that terms and parameters, you will understand, okay, I should go for this particular purchase or that. Herein, that is usually helping out. So these are the relative valuation models wherein you compare the benchmark using the EPS for two companies, wherein you'll get an idea, okay, this particular company is providing me an EPS of this many rupees and this one is providing me an EPS which is less than the first one. So definitely I'll go with the first one. Same goes with book value, same goes with sales, and same goes with enterprise value. The one which provides you the better kind of benefits, definitely you'll stick to that company. So therein, this particular benchmark value is basically used upon. Okay, perfect guys. So these are the major four relative value amongst many. So these are the major popular ones. The kind of idea that you'll get into these four definitely will help you in execution of any kind of relative valuation model in your entire life. So we'll stick to these four basically. So let's understand all of them one by one. Okay, let's start segment with first example. So this is basically an ABC Limited has posted an ROE, return of equity, of rupees of 20%, and it has a policy of retaining 30% of its earnings. Last year, the company earned rupees 2 per share. If the investor's expectation is 12%, then what is the price earning the market is giving to the company? Okay, so without going for the solution, let's understand this question first. ABC is basically a company which is providing an ROE of 20%. Okay, and it has a policy of retaining 30%. So how much is it going to declare as dividend? That's 70%. Okay, so 70% of 20% will be simply 14%. Okay, last year the company earned rupees 2. Okay, if in case the company has earned rupees 2, we can simply say that out of rupees 2, it has the ability to retain 30%. Then in that case, that is going to shed 1.4 rupees as dividend. And investors' expectation is is 12% over here. Now, what is the price earning ratio the market is basically giving to this company? Let's head to this solution first. G, basically the growth rate. Okay, so guys, growth basically happens only on the amount which is being retained by the company. Okay, so whatever which has been like provided by the company in the form of dividends, the companies will not able to grow on that particular amount because that has already been provided by the company. So the company has the opportunity to grow only on that amount which is available in the company's funds as retained earnings. Okay, that can be further invested, not the amount which has already been paid as dividend, right? So G is equal to ROE. ROE is basically the percentage which is the return of equity. Okay, the one which will be getting as investment. Okay, and into B. B basically means the amount which is being retained. Okay, so the company is going to grow only on 30%, 20%. Only on 30%, that is the retained earnings, for 20% on that. That is the earning which is being available on that 30%. That will be 0.20 into 0.30, which will be equal to 6%. Next comes as dividend for year 1. Okay, now since the company has been in the practice of providing the dividend as rupees 2 per share, after that the company is going to retain 30% of that. So company is going to provide the dividend of rupees 1.4. Now what's the price in this case? It would be D1, that is the dividend divided by K minus G, that is 0.12, which is being provided as the investor's expectation, minus 0.06, that is the growth rate. You will get a figure of as price rupees 23.33, and that's how it is being done. In this case, since we have already received the P0 as 23.33, we can simply go for obtaining the P, and that will be price, that is 23.33, divided by the earning. Earning was rupees 2 per share. So the P multiple of this particular company against the market would be 11.67, and that's how it is being done. Perfect guys, so that was the example which will be relating to the next topic. So this is the first time that I have incorporated an example first in order to make you understand as to how our concept is going to happen. So now this will relate to the valuation using EPS. Okay, first of all, so guys, EPS is basically the most widely used price multiple, is the price to earning ratio, earning per share, okay, or which is popularly known as PE ratio. Okay, so guys, the key idea behind the use of PE is that of the earning power is the chief driver of the investment value, and EPS is probably the primary focus which describes the company's earnings. That's the sheer core idea behind this kind of usage of price upon earning ratio. EPS however, is subject to many kind of distortions. It's volatile and sometimes provides negative ratio as well. So, which questions the credibility of using PE ratio in the financial analysis. The cyclicality of changing EPS is rectified by taking average of historical EPS over the full cycle. We can use usually either the trailing PE based on the recent EPS or the leading price equity price earning based upon the next year's expected EPS. So this is how it is being usually taken care of. Though it is possible that during your examination questions also you will get in a situation wherein you'll be able to know that okay, we have understood and calculated EPS. However, the same is going to coming negative. So don't get scared during that moment of time. There might be a chances wherein you will get negative EPS. So that doesn't mean that if you are doing the question in a wrong manner, definitely stick to the basic principles. If in case the question is in marked in such a way that the answer will be like in negative EPS, definitely don't get scared. That might happen because in most of the analysis part, usually it might happen that the company is having negative EPS. That simply means that the earning is comparatively lower than the number of equity shares outstanding. So that simply means that okay, so you have like an earning of rupees 1 lakh. However, you have the number of outstanding equity shares as rupees 2 lakh. Definitely the EPS is going to be negative in that sense. Okay, so earnings basically means by like you have losses of rupees 1 lakh and you have got 2 lakh equity shares, number of shares which are outstanding as on date. So since the company is in losses, the company has earning as negative. So that is minus 1 lakh divided by 2 lakh. So certainly it's going to be negative. So don't get scared by that way. Okay, it might be possible that it may happen. So stick to the basic concept, and that is the PE ratios are often shown on the current basis, usually, which is being taken care of. Current stock price divided by the latest 12 months earning per share. Alternatively, you can go for PE, which could be calculated by using the estimated earnings of the next period. Typically, a year. Usually, it happens like that. So the PE ratio is basically affected by three major aspects, guys. So stick to that. First, the expected dividend payout ratio. What is the dividend upon? Expected dividend payout ratio is going to affect the PE ratio. Second comes as required rate of return. What is the required rate of return which is expected? That is the second parameter which is going to affect the price on earning ratio. And the third one comes in as the expected growth rate of dividends. Okay, so that is also going to affect the price equity ratio, the expected growth rate of dividends. What is the expectation of the growth of dividends? Okay, so these three basic parameters are going to affect any kind of PE ratio. So a PE ratio is quite sensitive to a change in these factors. A 1% point change in the required rate of return, for example, can easily change the price of a stock by 30 to 40% even. A 1% change in growth, let's suppose the expected growth of dividends, also has got a significant kind of impact, but not as large as a change in the required rate of return. Both these factors usually have more impact than the impact of this payout ratio. That's going to happen that way. So it has to be very cautiously done. Whenever you go for any kind of obtaining or calculation of PE ratio, you'll have to ensure that you are taking up your dividend payout ratio, your required rate of return, and expected growth rate in the exact similar same amount, not similar, exactly same amount as to which has been provided in the question. It has to be taken care of because it is going to be extremely affected in that case. If in case that is going to be changed in such case of scenarios. So this was about EPS. That was the first and the foremost relative valuation model. Next comes in as book value. Okay, so that is price upon book value. So guys, this is the second most popular kind of multiple, is price to book value. That is the second most popular one after EPS. Book value per share basically attempts to represent investment that shareholders have made in the company on per share basis. However, it gets distorted owing to inflation, technological changes, accounting norms, etc. etc. So in that case, analysts usually attempt to remove those distortion by adjusting the book value and make P divided by book value, that is price on book value, more meaningful. So the fundamental drivers behind price on book value are return on equity and the required rate of. So These are the basic two fundamental drivers behind obtaining of price on BV. So return on equity and required rate of return. So in any kind of, simply if I'll have to tell you, so price is basically the thing which is currently going on in the market. That is the current price, okay, the market price. And if the book value is concerned, those are the values on which shares are being provided in the books of accounts. That is the financial statements. So that is the book value. Market value is the one on which the share is actually trading. Book value is the one on which the share is actually represented in the books of accounts. Though it is being timely taken care of, and the same is being corrected time and again in the books of accounts, but definitely that usually don't be the same like the market value. We have already seen many of the time that book value is just the par value, the face value, that is rupees 10 or rupees 100. However, the same stock, the same security is being traded in the stock exchange at a price of rupees 1000 even. That happens. So that is the market value. Book value is something which is being available as a record in your financial statements. So that is how it is being taken care of, and this is the second most popular method of multiples as price to book value. Perfect, guys. That is the second one. And if I have to narrate you briefly, because I want to share more and more with you guys, so if I have to take care of the concept crux with that, this second part, the book value one. So it would be saying that, okay, the discounted cash flows valuation, which usually relates to the value of the asset to the present value of the expected future cash flows of that asset. It usually serves as a way of estimating the intrinsic value of security. Relative valuation basically, guys, estimates the value of an asset by examining the pricing of the similar assets relative to the common variable, such as earnings, cash flows, book value, sales. So that's how it happens. Although this relative valuation provides information on current valuation, it doesn't provide guidance about the appropriateness of the current valuation. So though it will provide you the data, though it will provide you the analysis, but it's certainly not going to provide you any kind of guidance as to whether the same is appropriate for your kind of objectives or not. So it may happen that way. And this approach basically measures the relative value, not intrinsic value. Remember, guys, for that is in fundamental analysis. Relative valuation techniques are useful to consider when a good set of comparable entities are available and when serious undervaluation or overvaluation do not prevail in any kind of market. Okay, so that's only where relative valuation models comes into the picture. That's my kind of idea as to how relative valuation models usually undergo any kind of principal change. Next comes in as sales. Okay, so guys, this is another popular kind of multiple, which is price to sales ratio. This is sometimes preferred by analysts owing to fewer distortions as against EPS and book value. They are having many kind of distortions. Sales, this price to sales ratio multiple is usually not having that kind of large distortion. It has very fewer one. So that is why analysts usually prefer this one over EPS and book value. So sales are more stable than EPS, and certainly sales are never negative. EPS can be negative, guys, right? So however, sales figure could be manipulated, okay, using different revenue recognition practices. The same can be manipulated. The fundamental drivers of price to sales ratio are profit margin, growth rate, and required rate of return. So these are the parameters on which it is basically depending upon. Okay, next, this was about sales. That is the third most popular price multiple, valuation multiple, after EPS and book value, though the same is being utilized and used by analysts way more times as far as the distortions are concerned. The last one comes in as enterprise value, that is EV divided by EBITDA. Okay, so this EV divided by EBITDA is another kind of popular price multiple which is used in valuation of companies. Enterprise value is basically the total company value. You have to quote it in a one single sense. So it is basically the total company value, the market value of equity, debt, and preferred equity minus the value of cash and investments. That is being taken care of as enterprise value. The EBITDA is basically the pre-interest figure, okay, from the income statement which is available to the providers of all kind of capitals. EV divided by EBITDA is preferable in capital intensive companies where more debt is involved, and that may be more appropriate than PE multiple because that is most important for the capital intensive companies. The fundamental drivers of EV divided by EBITDA are the expected growth rate in free cash flow for the firm, that is FCFF, and WACC, that is weighted average cost of capital. Both these aspects, whether it's talking about like free cash flows of the firm or talking about the weighted average cost of capital, that has already been taken care of in my earlier presentations. If you have like missed out those kind of illustrations and examples where I've already covered the topics of free cash flows and weighted average cost of capital, definitely do get back to those videos. Definitely that will help you in understanding the topics way better. So guys, this was all about the topic of relative valuation model. About the major four ones are EPS, book value, sales, and enterprise value. I do hope that you guys got the entire clarity, the complete clarity as to how these relative valuation models go on, I'm sure. So definitely do revise your topics time and again. That will help you in understanding and retaining the topics in your mind for way longer. Okay, so guys, that was all about relative valuation models. Let's head to our next topic, and that is valuation using PE approach. Okay, price earning approach valuation basically calculated using the PE approach in this particular presentation. Okay, so let's consider one thing before starting out this. Okay, let's understand how to calculate and go about using or obtaining the valuation using the PE approach, price earning approach. So guys, consider if you are using any kind of dividend discount model, okay, with constant dividend approach, okay, wherein we know that price is equivalent to dividend divided by KE, wherein P basically simply means the one which is in perpetuity, where with the cash payment, that is dividend and discount rate of KE. K basically means cost of overall capital. Okay, here it is not mentioned as KO. K simply means cost of equity, cost of debt, so it could be anything around. So if I'll have to like simply quote in case of dividend discount model with constant dividend approach, the price will be equal to D upon K. Okay, so this usually forms in that case of scenarios. This formula can be related to price earning ratio because dividends are paid out of earnings. Let's suppose, if I'll have to like say about, let B be the flowback ratio. Okay, by B I means the one which is being referred to in my last slide, that was the retention. Okay, so retention ratio or flowback ratio, it could be anything. So B basically means as a fraction of earnings that are flowed back or retained back into the company. The same is not being provided as dividends. Okay, and the rest is paid out of as dividends. If the same is being paid out as dividend, the rest of the same. So we can simply say that in that case, D is equivalent to 1 minus B, that is B means the one which is being retained into earnings. Let's suppose you earned an earning of rupees 2. In this case, you have a B of let's say 30%. Okay, so the D will be 1.4 in that case. Simply, if I'll have to put it in that ways. Okay, and if like we have to substitute this expression with in this particular equation, we can simply go about as PO equals to E, that is earning, into 1 minus B, that is 1 minus retention ratio divided by K. You can simply say, okay, no, because that's P equals to D divided by K. We can simply say that this D can be incorporated over here as 1 E equals to 1 minus B, this D over here. Okay, so we got E multiplied by 1 minus B divided by K. We can simply say in that scenarios PO divided by E, if I'll have to like divide this by this, so we'll get it as 1 minus retention divided by K. Okay, and this simple model implies that price earning ratio is inversely related to the firm's cost of equity capital, that is K. The lower is the K, the higher is the firm's price earning ratio. And note that will happen only when the B, that is the retention ratio, is equals to 0. So in that case, it will be PO divided by E is equal to 1 minus K. So that will happen only if B is equal to 0. So that will be 1 minus 0 equals to 1 divided by K. I can simply say in that way. So guys, what a simple trick, okay, in order to understand that concept. So the simply model basically implies that the price earning ratio, that is P upon E, is equals to inversely related to the firm's cost of capital, 1 divided by KE. Okay, so the lower the KE is, the higher is the price earning ratio of the firm. So it happens that way. So many of the students usually ask me that, okay sir, how to go about this kind of situation. So I basically prepared this kind of derivation in a very simpler way in order to make you understand as to how the lower the KE and higher the firm's price earning ratio would be. So that is how it will go about this. Okay, so now consider with the same kind of approach, if we consider the dividend discount model with a constant growth approach rather than constant dividend approach, then we can simply say in that case PO, that is the price, will be equals to D1 divided by KE minus G. And since the dividend growth model works better than the model with constant expected dividends, but it doesn't require any kind of estimate of G, that is growth rate. We can simply express G being ROE into B, that was being considered and understood in my last slide. G equals to ROE into B. Okay, ROE is the one, that is the return on equity which is being provided, that is the investment rate. Okay, and B means the retention ratio. Okay, so growth will happen only on the retained earnings and not on dividends provided, wherein ROE is the return on firm's equity, and thus we can say that, that the growth rate equals to the return on equity times the flowback ratio, that is the retention ratio. Or we can simply say that the growth is determined by how much of the earnings is put back into the firm, and the same which is being not provided as dividends, and how profitable those earnings are. So therefore, by substituting, if I'll have to substituting by G, that is the ROE into B, we'll get in this simple case, after G I'll be like substituting the figures as B into ROE. Okay, here D1 is equals to E1, that is earnings, into the one which is being not retained. Okay, so that will be dividend. So D1, that means that. Okay, so if that has to be like simply put in, so we know that we can substitute this in the numerator, and definitely that will help us in getting this kind of result. So guys, PO divided by E1. So if I'll have to like change D1 as this, substitute the figures over here. So I'll get E1 here as denominator, and I'll get 1 minus B as numerator, whole divided by K minus B into ROE. Now let's assume, and if that happens, usually the price earning ratio is basically determined by the market capitalization rate, that is K, and the flowback ratio, that is B, and the return on equity, that is ROE. Now if we assume that the ROE is equivalent to K, the earnings that are yet kept in the firm provide the same kind of return as earnings that are paid out. Okay, so what will happen? Certainly the company will be willing to pay out entire amount as dividend, because the ROE is equal to K, the kind of investment that you will make as 10%, and the kind of cost of capital that you will take from shareholders or any kind of other debt, that will be 10%. So definitely you don't go for any kind of this hassle or these hassles, because that is not going to fetch you many returns. The same is the amount. You'll shed out 10 rupees from your pocket, and you'll receive 10 rupees in your pocket. So that doesn't make any kind of sense. So definitely you'll go for an option of providing the entire amount as dividend. So herein, if ROE is equal to K, the earnings that are kept by the firm provide the same kind of return as earnings that are paid out. So in that case, ROE matches the expected rate of return of the shareholder. Therefore, there is no growth for the firm, meaning the same is being paid out. Okay, so if in case the growth is 0, I can simply say that the price of the firm is the same, whether those earnings are left in the firm or returned back to the shareholders. Hence, the retention ratio can be considered at 0 in this case. If the same is being considered as 0, this 0 and this 0, I'll simply get again this kind of derivation, wherein P0 is divided by E is equals to 1 divided by K. Again, the same thing is happening. Why, guys? Because obviously when ROE is greater than K, the price earning ratio does depend on the flowback ratio. That is, it will simply increase with the fraction flowed back into the firm. Shareholders will reward the firm with higher amount of price earning ratio, and the companies that have low ROE relative to K will be punished by the low price earning ratios when they flow back a large amount of fraction of earnings, and then it will happen over here. Perfect, guys. So with the usage of this P upon E, price upon earning calculated above, we can simply find out the value of the share, which is equals to P0 is equal to expected earnings per share into P0 divided by earnings. So that will how it will go about. Okay. So guys, this was all about the topic relating to valuation using PE approach. Though this kind of questions, this kind of equation, these kind of derivations, these kind of understandable things will never come in a question paper. But it was imperative and important for me to make you understand as to how these things go about. Okay. So in order to make you understand this particular segment, definitely I had to incorporate so that to make things simpler for you. And if in case, maybe, you never know, we won't take any kind of chances with as far as ICI's examination question papers are concerned. If in case the same comes in, definitely you'll be able to solve your questions with proper clarity. So that is why it was being incorporated. I hope I was able to be the best kind of man to make you understand this kind of concept with the help of these simple 4-step derivative. So it has been like very big and tedious kind of job for me, but I had like shifted the entire thing into these 4 simple baby steps wherein I was able to make you understand this thing. So if in case definitely you would have liked it, definitely do respond to your feedback and questions, and that will help us in understanding your needs way better. So now let's move to our last topic of the day, and that will be valuation using earnings growth approach. Okay, so guys, dividend discount model with constant growth approach. If we consider dividend discount model with constant growth approach, we know that the price is given by PO is equals to D1 divided by K into G. Herein this divided is missing, so kindly pardon me for the same. It has to be a slash in between them. So D1 divided by K minus G. So if we assume, guys, that all the earnings are being distributed, all entire dividends, entire kind of earnings are being distributed as dividends, then we can use earnings as proxy for dividend. Obviously, you earn 2 rupees, you pay 2 rupees as dividend, so definitely earnings can be used as the proxy for dividend, okay, for calculating the value of the share. Thus, we can simply go about replacing this D1 from with E. So that will be PO is equals to E1 divided by KE minus E. This will happen only if the ROE is equals to KE, wherein you won't go for any other kind of investment since the return on equity is 10% and KE is 10%. So definitely in such a case, since you are not going for any kind of investment opportunities, you'll be providing the entire earnings as dividend, and hence since there is no amount which is being kept as retained earnings, there will be no kind of growth, and in that case the growth will be 0. Perfect, guys. So this is basically going to happen in that case, and in those case the valuation using earnings growth approach will be computed using this kind of formula, or I should say concept, because there is no such formula as far as SFM is concerned. So there are all concepts, we are all doing concept work. So guys, that was all about this kind of presentation. We did discuss about relative valuation models, valuation using PE approach, valuation using earnings growth approach. So how about like moving with this? So I'm sure that you guys did got a complete clarity as to how this has to be taken care of. I'll be concluding my video with a dose of motivation, and that will be decide what you want, decide what you're willing to exchange for it, establish your priorities, and go to work. H.L. Hunt mentioned this quote. So one has to decide, guys, whatever he or she wants to do in his or her life. So there is not a kind of feeling wherein you get something for nothing. You'll have to do something. You'll have to do something in order to get something. So there is no something for nothing in this world. You won't get even a cup of tea if you're not doing something. So it has to be taken care of. Only apart from going for temples, Gurdwara. So one has to work extremely hard. Decide what you want in your life. Decide what you're willing to exchange for it. No matter what so happens, you'll have to make it. You'll have to make it, and you are the best person who can make it. Believe in yourself. Believe in each and every kind of dream you are watching for yourself. Believe in all those aspirations. Believe in all those ideas that you are taking care of in your mind. believe that something is going to happen. And miracles do happen every day. You just need to establish your priorities and head towards work. And the same will be taken care of well by the gods. Almighty is going to take care of it. Don't worry. Go for your best shot. Period. With this, I'll say a thank you on behalf of the Edupedia world. Keep interacting with your questions, queries in the comment boxes. Stay connected. That will help us in understanding your needs way better. Love you guys. Take care. God bless you all.